All right, this is a beaver dam. It's late December and we've had a warm spell, so the creek is flowing down below it. There's another one closer to me too. It doesn't quite make it out to the lake. The lake's covered in ice. There's a Mendenhall Glacier. When you come up to visit Juneau in the summer, you can come walk right down to where I'm standing and look at this beaver dam. But the question is, how do beaver make it through the winter? Because what happens, it's warm now, and it gets warm and cold. If you're further north, there's still beaver, and it does not thaw in the wintertime. The entire pond that they've dug out will be covered with hard ice. How do the beaver who live in the water breathe? What they do is they build their lodges in many places, or they dig a hole in the bank. And so they can get above the layer of ice, and inside their lodge, where they're above the layer of ice, they can breathe, and they just keep the opening within the lodge so they can go out into the pond. Why do they go out into the pond in the winter? Beaver do not hibernate. They shut down an awful lot. They spend an awful lot of time sleeping, but they have to eat through the winter because bark is not very good food. What they do is they swim out and they have stashed branches underwater that they can chew on and get food for through the winter. They're also going to lose weight, but that's why they need the pond, and they can't just live in a big lodge. They need a place to get out to get some of that food. Now, if the entire pond is frozen over, they can't make it to the surface. They have to swim back to the lodge to get out. But beaver have a tremendous ability to stay under there for a very long time. Now the lodge can be a pile of branches up to 12, up to 20 feet tall. Or they put it in a bank. It's a different style. It's generally in rivers that they put a hole in the bank, and it's got to be well above the water line so that, of course, they can live outside of the water for some of the time. But this is a sad story. I believe it was a National Geographic television crew. Actually, no, that's not it. I just remembered. It was Jacques Cousteau. So Jacques Cousteau was famous as an ocean explorer, went all over and was showing people coral reefs that people hadn't really seen and doing underwater photography. And he got this idea. He wanted to do an underwater show on beaver. And I'm not going to see a beaver out here. It's wintertime. They don't come out very much. They could get to the surface if the ice isn't that thick. I think even though I can see open water out here, I'm pretty sure that ice is plenty thick enough for me to walk on. So the beaver are stuck in for the winter, at least this, unless it gets a lot warmer. But Jacques Cousteau, what he did is he found this beautiful lodge in northern Canada, and he wanted beaver in it. And so what he did was he imported some beaver from Michigan, I think it was, up to Canada. And he did a series showing these beaver building their lodge and preparing for the wintertime. And then when the winter came along and everything froze over, they wanted to kind of keep showing, but things got really quiet. And when spring came, and they didn't see the beaver when the lake melted out, he sent some divers in. They couldn't crawl into the lodge, so they ended up pulling the lodge open, and they found all of the beaver dead. They had starved to death because their guess is that they'd moved these beaver hundreds of maybe 500-800 miles further north, and it was a very cold winter, and they hadn't made their lodge high enough above the ice line, and they hadn't insulated it well enough so that they got frozen into their lodge and they couldn't get out and get some food. So, sad story. You got to be careful what you do. Jacques Cousteau felt horrible about the whole thing. So do I, telling you the story about it. But this is where, in the right ecosystem, things work. These are beaver, and we used to have this beautiful wolf named Romeo that roamed this lake, Mendenhall Lake, and roamed through these woods. We call these dredge lakes because it looks like a dredge went through there and plowed everything up. There's bunches of ponds back there full of beaver from all the glacial action just 150 years ago. And that wolf Romeo lived back here, and people would see him go to the bathroom, and they dig through it, and they found he ate an awful lot of beaver. Now, if you love beaver, you might feel sad for the beaver because of that. But if you like wolves, you realize it's part of the cycle of nature. So Anyway, Romeo's gone. The beaver are booming up here. You can come up, walk through Dredge Lake. You can see them. You can hear their tail slaps, or you can come right here. The visitor center is just behind me past these trees. And this beaver dam is just out of sight from the visitor center itself. But you can walk down to the lakefront, come down here, and listen for a tail slap. Watch those busy guys at work. So come on up. Dolphin Doug, out.